In this session, we are going to discuss about learning, which is a psychological phenomenon. And when we think about learning, we have a set of definitions. And the term learning gives us a meaning that it is a process of gaining knowledge. And to gain knowledge or skill in something through study, teaching, instruction or experience is normally termed as learning. In other words, learning is a process by which behavior is changed, shaped or controlled. If we think from a different perspective, we can say the individual process of constructing understanding based on experience from a wide range of sources is also termed as learning. That means learning has different meaning in different contexts. And a psychologist's definition of learning is considerably broader than the layperson's understanding of learning. And a psychologist understands learning as any relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of experience. That means learning is a permanent change, and that change takes place in behavior, and that permanent change is a result of experience. So the change in behavior indicate that learning has taken place, and learning is a change in behavior. So if there is a change in behavior, we can understand that a learning has taken place. And the other side of the same coin is that when there is a learning, we have to ensure, or we can ensure that a change in behavior might have taken place, because learning is a change in behavior. And all complex behavior is learned. And we learned so many behaviors in our lifespan, and in an organizational context, managers can facilitate employee learning. Employees have to learn many things in an organization in terms of their work performance, in terms of their interaction with their colleagues, or in terms of their interaction with management, etc. Employee has to learn many things, and the managers in an organization can facilitate various types of employee learning. So learning is very important in an organizational context, or in the aspect of organizational behavior. And some of the principles related to the learning process. Learning is something all humans do. We have to understand that the learning is a very pervasive psychological process. We know fetuses learn. A fetus in the mother's womb learns so many things. It learns the sound of the mother. Infants learn. Children learn. Adults learn. So as a human grow in its life stages, it learns so many things. So learning is something all humans do. And the other principle, the second principle is that learning is not uniquely human. Rather, all living things learn. That means we cannot attribute the learning as a human phenomenon. Rather, all living things on earth learn. So it is not uniquely human or only a human process. Rather, it is a process of all living organisms. And the third principle is that learning evolved as an adaptation for promoting survival. In order to survive in the environment which is changing, the living organisms have to adapt to the environment. And as a result of this adaptation process, learning occurred or evolved or happened. So learning evolved as an adaptation for promoting survival. Without learning, the living things cannot survive. And we can approach learning from two different perspectives. One is learning as a process, and the other one is learning as a product. And when we approach learning as a process, we can understand that learning involves the individual. That means it involves brain and human body. Effective learning is possible to a person who has intellectual capabilities. One who does not have a well-developed intelligence system may find it difficult to learn. So it involves brain and body. And similarly, learning involves others. And it involves dyads, groups, organizations, communities, society, etc. Dyad means two individuals. From another individual, an individual learns a lot of things. And as part of groups also, individuals learns. From organizations, we learn so many things. From communities and a larger society also, we learn different things. So learning involves others. And the third aspect of learning as a process is that learning takes place somewhere. Somewhere in physical environment. There should be an environment in which the learning takes place. For example, in schools, students learn things. In organizations, employees learn so many things. So it takes place in physical environment. And it takes place with things and tools. We learn how to handle a tool or equipment. So it takes place with things and tools. And learning occurs over time. It is not a sudden, spontaneous reaction. It takes time. It happens over time. learning occurs over time. For example, a person who learns to drive a vehicle, he is not learning driving overnight. Rather, it is a time-consuming process. Similarly, every learning occurs over time. And learning as a product involves certain aspects. The first one is learning is about ideas and concepts. We learn ideas and concepts, and those are the products of learning. And learning is about behaviors and skills. We learn so many behaviors in our life, and we acquire various skills. And learning is about attitudes and values. We learn or we develop attitudes out of learning, and we inculcate values in our life as a result of learning. So learning as a product involves catching of ideas, concepts, behaviors, skills, attitudes and values. So all these can be considered as products of learning. So in organizational behavior, we come to the psychological definition of learning. And the definition is, learning is any relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of experience. And there are three components of learning as per this definition. The first component is that learning involves change. So there should be a change in behavior to call something as a learning. If there is a learning, there will be some change in behavior. So learning involves change. And the second component is, learning is relatively permanent. It is not a reflex action. Rather, it is relatively permanent. We are not saying that it is absolutely permanent. Rather, it is relatively permanent. And the third component is, learning is acquired through experience. So only through the repeated exposure or experience, something can be learned. So learning is acquired through experience. So these are the introductory concepts related to learning. Thank you.